extraordinary. Luke Humphries, we know it's not all about averages. I'm just giving you some 110 average.
Luke Littler and Luke Humphries are set to represent England at the upcoming World Cup of Darts in Frankfurt. But don't get it twisted. They might be on the same team for now, but their rivalry is the most legendary in darts history. These two Lukes aren't just throwing darts, they're making history one leg at a time. But it didn't start with friendship, it started with fireworks.
The ascension is complete! Luke Humphries is the greatest darting force on the planet right now!
So, who's been dominating the oche, and how did it all kick off? Now, we can't understand how deep this rivalry is without sizing up the two players. First up is Luke Littler, known as the Nuke, the teenager with the throw of a 20-year veteran. Littler exploded onto the scene at the 2024 PDC World Championship like a human cheat code. At just 16, he stormed all the way to the final. Yeah, you heard that right. A teenager nearly won the biggest darts tournament on the planet. He didn't win, but still, getting to the final was a huge statement. As for Humphries, he isn't exactly old either, but compared to Littler, he's the grizzled veteran. Cool Hand Luke finally found the ignition switch on his career and has been lighting it up ever since. World champion, world number one, Premier League regular, he's been around the block a few more times, but in the past year or so, he's been dominating the circuit like it's a walk in the park. 3 nightly wins in the 2025 Premier League already, including that most recent heartbreaker in Leeds. Simply put, these two are absolute monsters, but what makes them even more interesting is how perfect they are as rivals.
Littler staying on the 18s. Double 7. Oh, what a shot! It's a third tumbler.
One's a teen prodigy with a swagger, TikTok vibes and ridiculous talent. The other's calm, calculated, ice cold under pressure, and just as dangerous. The question now is, how do these two darts wizards cross paths to set off what would be an iconic rivalry? Now, let's hit the rewind button and go back to where the Littler vs Humphries rivalry kicked off. I already mentioned the 2024 PDC World Championship, where Littler made it to the final. But guess who was there waiting? Luke Humphries, of course. This was a match for the ages, because Luke Littler was just 16 at the time and was blowing minds. And then there was Luke Humphries. He was cool-headed and consistent, and he'd been knocking on the door for what felt like forever. Humphries had been winning European Tour titles, putting in solid TV performances and climbing the rankings like a man on a mission. But there was still a gaping hole in his resume. No world title, not just yet. So of course, fate being what it is, these two just had to meet in the PDC World Championship final. The old guard versus the new kid, even though, let's be honest, neither of them really counts as old. But still, in darts terms, Humphries was the seasoned pro, while Littler was the wild card. The match was so hyped that everyone and their dog was talking about it, and it didn't disappoint. Littler came out firing, and you'd think the nerves would get to him, right? Nah, he was hitting 180s like it was target practice in his garage. Every time you blinked, he'd nailed another treble 20. The crowd couldn't believe it. Commentators couldn't believe it. Even Humphries looked like he had to remind himself to breathe. But here's the thing about Humphries, he doesn't panic. He doesn't flinch. He just keeps doing his thing. And that night, his thing was averaging in the mid-90s, nailing doubles and absorbing pressure like a sponge. He didn't try to match Littler's firepower. He outlasted it, stayed calm, kept scoring, and finished when it mattered. That 7-4 win gave Humphries his first ever world title, and you could see what it meant to him. It was years of graft finally paying off. And Littler? He didn't storm off or pout. He smiled because he knew this wasn't just a dream run, this was the new reality. He wasn't just a teenage sensation, he was the real deal, the kind of player who doesn't just show up once and vanish. For him, this was just the beginning of something big. From that night on, people weren't just talking about Luke Humphries anymore, there was a new Luke in the building, and people were talking about both. The established champ, Luke Humphries, and the fearless rookie, Luke Littler. The rivalry was officially ignited. And from that moment on, darts fans couldn't wait to see more Littler vs Humphries showdowns. And they got exactly what they waited for. more showdowns. After the World Final, the Lukes didn't go their separate ways. Nope, the darts calendar made sure of that. The Premier League practically threw them into a weekly face-off. It was like a sitcom where the two main characters couldn't stop running into each other. Only this wasn't a comedy, it was a battle of supremacy. Their first rematch was one of those nights where you feel the tension before they even throw a dart, because Littler came in with something to prove, and he certainly did. He absolutely cooked Humphries that night. We're talking about 100 plus averages, ice-cold checkouts, and that dead-eyed look that says, "You better respect me now." It was a message heard loud and clear. The kid's not just here for the vibes, he's here to win, and he can beat the best. But hold on, you didn't think Humphries was just going to take that, did you? Nah, he bounced back like a guy who just remembered who he was. And when he did, it was brutal. He returned the favour in style. Tight matches, yes, but Humphries started pulling out wins in the moments that mattered most. One of the absolute bangers was in their recent 2025 Premier League match in Leeds, which I'll talk about later in this video. For now, that's how the Littler-Humphries rivalry has gone since. Back and forth, blow for blow. One week it's Littler with the swagger and the 12 darters. The next week it's Humphries with the clutch checkouts and stone-cold finishes. It's like every match flips the script. One day Littler looks unstoppable, then Humphries shows up and reminds you who the world champ is. Even their stats are tight. You can dig through their averages, check out percentages, whatever, it's all neck and neck. All in all, the two have faced off a total of 20 times on the PDC scene, with Littler holding the slight 11-9 advantage over Humphries. What makes it better is that neither of them is scared of the other. There are no mind games, just darts. Pure, ridiculous darts. And that's what fans love. You never know what's going to happen. 1 second, Littler's on a 9-dart leg, the next, Humphries is hitting 3 straight 140s and walking off like he's just made a sandwich. These matches have everything: drama, pressure, clutch moments, missed chances, and redemption arcs. Simply put, this isn't just a rivalry. It's the best thing going in darts right now, and honestly, it might go down as the best we've ever seen. Now let's talk about their most recent meeting, the one that really had people talking. Premier League Night 14 in Leeds. Littler came into this one on fire. He'd already won 5 nights in this season's Premier League, a new record under the current format. That's more than any other player in a single campaign. But Humphries had a different kind of fire. Leeds United had just sealed promotion to the Premier League, and Humphries, being a die-hard Leeds United fan, used that energy like rocket fuel. He was playing with purpose, and yeah, maybe a little Leeds pride. The final was, once again, Littler versus Humphries, and yep, it delivered. Littler started hot, took out 96 with 2 double 19s, and if you've ever played darts, you know how nuts that is. Double 19, double 19? Who does that? But Humphries didn't blink. He hit back hard, he won 3 legs in a row, and punished Littler for missing doubles. In fact, it looked like the classic Humphries story: calm, ruthless, and efficient. Then Littler did what Littler does. He dropped an 11-darter to tie it up and brought the crowd to life. But then Humphries answered again with an amazing 13-darter and a clean 80 checkout. It was like 2 tennis players trading aces. Littler fought back to force a decider, and then it happened. Both players missed the ball for the win. You could feel the tension through the screen, but Humphries once again stayed cooler. He took out 52, and it was game over. Without a doubt, this match was another classic added to the growing list of Littler versus Humphries showdowns. And honestly, it's hard to argue this isn't the most exciting rivalry in darts history. Of course, naysayers might disagree, because after all, darts has given us other great rivalries. So let's see how the Littler-Humphries rivalries compare to other iconic rivalries in darts. As I've mentioned before, darts has given us huge rivalries in the past. There's been absolute greats like Phil Taylor versus Raymond van Barneveld, Michael van Gerwen versus Gary Anderson, Eric Bristow versus John Lowe, Peter Wright versus Gerwin Price, and Adrian Lewis versus James Wade. Sure, those were legendary, but there's something about this Littler versus Humphries thing that just hits different. Maybe it's because of the generational gap between Littler and Humphries. One's barely old enough to rent a car, the other is in his prime. Maybe it's because they keep trading wins and neither has full control. Or maybe, just maybe, it's because every time they play it feels like the biggest match of the year. Social media era or not, every Luke Littler versus Jake Humphries match draws more attention than any of the rivalries I mentioned, and that's a fact. And let's be honest, it helps that both guys are ridiculously likeable. Littler has that cheeky, confident teenager energy. He talks smack but in a fun way. He also plays with flair and showmanship that gets the crowd going. Humphries is the total opposite. He's quiet, composed and focused. He lets his darts do the talking, and man do they talk loud. You can't help but respect the guy. Another reason this rivalry stands out from the others is that Littler and Humphries don't hate each other, which is kind of refreshing. It's not a grudge match, it's a show of skill match. But that doesn't make it any less intense. If anything, it makes it better, because they know they have to bring their absolute best to win every single time. Now, have you ever wondered about how these two rivalries would perform if they were on the same team? We're about to find out. So, Luke Littler and Luke Humphries, two guys who've been battering each other on stage for months and now going to be teammates. Yeah, you heard that right. England's dynamic darting duo are teaming up for the 2025 World Cup of Darts in Frankfurt this June. Now, on paper, this is the dream team. World number one and the most hyped teenager in darts history playing side by side. Sounds like a cheat code for England. But here's the thing. These two have been trying to outdo each other non-stop. They've met in finals, semi-finals, quarter-finals, you name it. So the big question is, can they actually work together without trying to outshine each other every time they step up to the oche? It's not like they hate each other or anything, there's mutual respect. But darts is a solo sport and egos do exist. But what do you think about one of darts' biggest rivalries? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, click to subscribe.